I'm just going to go right in. Item 1 is any declarations of interest?
Procedure notes, Chair, in the sedating.
Right, thank you. I'm going to move over to Elizabeth Ann, who's going to do the sedating.
Thank you, Chair. Before we start recording the meeting, I'll just go through some procedure notes. So for those in the room, just ensure that you've inserted your card into the right-hand side of the delegate unit. If you wish to speak, please press the request to speak on the delegate unit and press again to switch off. When speaking, please ensure that you're close enough to your microphone for your voice to be picked up and ensure that remote participants can hear. For those in the room using your laptop, please ensure that you have pressed F5 and F8 to mute your microphones. For those participating remotely, if you need to message the chair or clerk, please use the chat button on Confero. When speaking, it's helpful, if you lose connection or have any technical issues, please alert the clerk's assistant by text on 07385 403 101, and we'll contact colleagues in IT for assistance. The meeting will be recorded as well as live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. When a member has declared an interest, they will be required to leave the meeting prior to consideration of that item and advise at that stage when you're leaving the meeting. For those participating remotely, you'll be sent an email advising when you can rejoin the meeting. So we're now going to start recording the meeting, and I'll take the sedierant. Okay, that's the meeting now recording, so I'll take the sedierant of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday, the 27th of September 2022. Okay, I have apologies from Councillor Buchanan. Councillor Donnelly is present. Councillor Fulton? No. Councillor Gowland? No. Councillor Handybod? No. Some of the remote participants are having problems. Okay. Councillor Johnson-Dempsey? I believe Councillor Johnson-Dempsey is trying to get into the meeting, so we will contact IT to get that sorted. Councillor Kerr is present. Councillor Lockhart? No. And we have apologies from Councillor McDougall. We have a number of officers present at today's meeting. So with that, I'll now pass you back to the Chair to start today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. Is there any declaration of interest? No.
Chair, I have Councillors Gowland and Councillor Keat wanting to speak.
Right, okay. So we'll go for Ross Gowland and then Gavin. Ross Gowland.
Please.
Hi, no, it's just to say that I am here.
Can you come, Ross?
Hi there, it's just to say that I am here remotely. I think you had me down as not being here. But... Okay.
Okay, and call Gavin Keat.
Hi there, just to confirm that I'm attending on behalf of Matthew Buchanan.
And Colin Dewar.
Just to note, I'm substituting for Elaine McDougall.
Okay. The minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. The minutes of previous meeting. I'll move as a correct record. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Item 3. Oh, Alistair, is there anything you want to request to speak? Alice, Councillor Fulton, would you like to speak? Okay. Item 3, 2022 to 2023, the internal audit plan. This is a item for decision making. The report to be moved and seconded, and Yvonne Douglas will speak to this report.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is the 22-23 internal audit plan. The committee will probably remember that back in January we brought the first phase of this plan to the committee for approval, and what you have in front of you is the second phase of the internal audit plan for 22-23. Section 3 of the report references the public sector internal audit standards, and that's actually picked up in a further report in this meeting's agenda, so I won't go into that in too much detail at this point. In terms of the phase 1 plan that we brought to you in January, the progress with that is set out in Appendix 1 to the report, and that gives you a brief update in terms of what work has been done in the first half of the year. Section 4 of the report just takes you through the process to set out the second phase of the internal audit plan, and you'll perhaps remember there were a couple of issues around capacity. We weren't clear in terms of the amount of resources that we would require to put into the Oracle Fusion project, and we also had some other temporary resourcing pressures within our team related to election and also planned periods of leave. So bringing this second phase of the plan has given me an opportunity to revise our capacity and be able to be clearer in terms of the number of audit days that we've got left between now and the end of the financial year. So once we've determined the number of days, Section 4 of the report just takes you through how we developed the plan itself. We revisited the top risk register and reflected the fact that there are a couple of new risks in there. So you'll see one in relation to community wealth building that's reflected in this second phase of the internal audit plan. In terms of the proposed plan itself, it's attached at Appendix 2. And what I've also done at Appendix 3 is shown how each of those assignments links to the key assurance areas. You'll perhaps remember that when we present an annual report at the end of the year, the audit opinion has 3 aspects to it. And we express an audit opinion on internal control, risk management and governance. So what Appendix 3 does is takes each of the audit assignments and tells you which of those 3 areas that it links to. We're continuing to carry some contingency time just so that we can build in some flexibility. And the plan, as I say, is set out in Appendix 2, and I'm asking the committee today to approve this as a plan of work to be completed between now and 31st of March 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that report, Yvonne. Now, this is a decision, so I'm moving that report. Can I have a second? Is there any questions to that report? No. Okay, I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Colin. I now go on to item 4, which is for noting the internal audit activity as at 9th of September, and that report again will be moved by Yvonne Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. This is the activity report that we bring to the committee at each meeting. This one covers the period 4th of June through to 9th of September. There's also a couple of other aspects to this report. The first being it sets out the audit reports that have been presented to the Glasgow City Region City Deal Cabinet, and also talks a bit more about the planned external assessment in terms of our level of compliance with the public sector internal audit standards. So in terms of the routine part of the report, as I mentioned, this takes us up to the period of the 9th September, and the report notes that we're 20% through the first plan of work at that point in time. Key performance indicators have all been met in the period, and they're attached at Appendix 2. As is our usual method of presenting this, Appendix 3, we've set out the internal audit assignments that have been completed in the period, and very briefly it sets out the assurance in relation to each of those pieces of work. There's no significant concerns in any of those areas, so what you're seeing there is a very brief summary of the output of the work in that period. Section 5 of the report is just doing something that we committed to do at a previous meeting of the committee, and that was in relation to city deal audit reports that we said that we would let the committee know when these are presented to Cabinet. So at 5.1 you'll see there's a hyperlink there that takes you through to a number of audit reports that have been presented in the period. And the paragraphs that follow that give you a very brief summary of what the output. Again, all of the areas were either general, reasonable, adequate, similar type of assurance, and no significant concerns to bring to the committee at this point in time. What we also committed to do was to follow up on the actions that were relevant to South Lanarkshire Council, and that's work that we've made a start on and will report to a future meeting of the Audit Committee. Section 6, the last part of this report, is bringing to the committee's attention the fact that we're about to undertake an external assessment of our level of compliance with the public sector internal audit standards. You'll be aware of the fact that we regularly reference these standards when we bring reports to the committee, and each year we come to the committee and confirm that we've complied with these standards, but it's a self-assessment exercise. But what the standards require you to do is once every 5 years that you have an external assessor who comes in, who looks at the standards, who looks at your procedures and your processes and gives you that assurance that you are complying with those standards. Now, I'm aware of the fact it's a new committee, so what I've done at 6.2 is I've actually included a link to the previous report that was presented to the Audit Committee back in 2017-18, and this was the first time that we had an external inspection. The plan is that the work will be completed by East Lothian Council and that the report will come to the Audit Committee by March 2023. So in terms of the recommendations within this report, I'm asking that you note the progress and performance with the plan. You note the audit findings from the audit reports that have been completed in the period. You note the audit reports that were presented to the Cabinet in relation to city deal audits. And you also note that a planned external assessment of the Council's internal audit service level of compliance with size will be completed and reported to the committee in March 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Any questions to that report? No. Okay, I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yep, I'll second it.
Thank you. Item 5. Is he here? Oh, he's online. Right. Item 5, the year-end insured risks report 21-22. And Scott Dunsmore is going to speak, who's the Insurance and Risk Management Advisor, and he's going to speak to this report. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just check, this is kind of new for me, can I be heard okay?
Yeah.
You can hear all right, that's good. Okay, as you say, it's the year-end insured risk report for 21-22. This is the standard report that we bring to committee each year that looks at the number and cost of insurance claims, and it looks at trends over recent years. The report also goes into some detail on what we're going to be doing to mitigate against insurance claims. So just under section 3 of the report on background, I'd just like to highlight to committee a change to our insurance programme this year. We do regular reviews to ensure that we've got the best balance between bought-in insurance and self-insurance. So this year we've increased our self-insured excess from £250,000 to £500,000. Now that is a big jump and it does come with some additional risk. But just to give you some assurance, we have used the claims figures for the last 10 years to carry out a cost-benefit analysis, and the level of savings on premiums was considered significant enough to take on that additional risk. Moving on to the claims side of things, section 4 of the report provides an overview of claims data, and appendix 1 provides a summary of numbers and cost of claims over the last 5 years. So the overall comparison shows a downward trend in claims numbers. Back in 2017-18, we had a total of 1,350 claims. For 21-22, our claims numbers are dropped down to 822. I would qualify that by saying that we'd probably expect, you know, some late notified claims still to come in, but even with a 10% increase, we'd still be looking at an overall reduction over that 5-year period of around 33%. So our claims numbers are definitely going in the right direction. In terms of claims costs over the last 5 years, the average cost comes in about £2.1 million for self-insured claims. For 21-22, the cost is coming at £2.2 million, so that is slightly above average. And the main reason for that is due to a spike in property claims. I will come on to discuss that further as I go through the report. Section 5 of the report does a direct comparison of claims costs for the last 2 years, so that's 21-22 against 2021. The main point that we're bringing out here is that we have seen a 7% reduction in, I beg your pardon, a 7% increase in our claims costs and a 12% increase in the costs. Now, the one thing I wanted to flag up is that 2021 was not a normal year, and we did have significantly reduced council operations. So I think it's fair to say that the increases that we're seeing for the most recent year are not unexpected because, you know, as I say, our operations were significantly reduced the prior year. Section 6 through to Section 9 of the report covers the trends for our 3 main classes of claims. Again, I don't intend to go through that in any detail, but I would like to refer the committee to Section 9 of the report just to explain why we've seen that jump in our property claims. So the reason that we've seen the increase in property claims is really twofold. We did have one very significant storm damage claim for Lanark Lifestyles where the roof was torn off at the start of the year. That claim is valued at £180,000, and the second reason that we've seen a spike there is the cost of council house fires has increased. So for 2021, the cost of house fires was £230,000. For 21-22, the cost has increased to £511,000. So it's more than doubled. And the reason for that is it's not that our number of house fires has increased. The numbers are broadly the same as the prior year. We've just seen more significant fires. I think there's another factor in amongst that the cost of materials to reinstate these properties has increased over the period as well. So that may well be a factor in the reason we've seen that increase. So that kind of provides the overall sort of summary on the claims costs. Just jumping on to what we're going to be doing to mitigate claims, Section 9 of the report is headed up insurance hotspots. And you will see within that section there are 9 bullets on actions that we're looking to take forward to mitigate against claims under property, motor and liability, the 3 main classes. Again, I don't intend going through that in any great detail, but just maybe to bring 3 specific initiatives to the committee's attention. I mentioned about obviously house fires being an issue. We're looking to do continued awareness raising around this. We have recently done an article in the Housing News that looks at the cause of fires and tips for tenants on fire safety. So we're looking to do more of that through social media with the council's PR department. On the motor claim side, we recently launched a challenging driver behaviour training programme. That is directed for all managers who have driving at work responsibilities, and we will be looking to make sure that all our managers go through that course. The course looks at why accidents happen, what we can do to prevent them. We've got some hard-hitting videos in there on the dangers of distractions whilst driving, using mobile phones and the like. The course also contains a useful checklist that, if followed, will significantly reduce the likelihood of you being involved in an accident. So the first stage of that is really just to roll that out to all managers, and then we will be developing a similar course for anybody who drives a council vehicle, and we'll be looking for them to go through that same course. The third one that I just wanted to flag up was under the liability side. So we will be looking to do a health, safety and training review this year. That will be undertaken by the council's claims handlers, Gallagher Bassett. I'll be looking at how well training is embedded throughout the council to make sure that staff are competent in all the tasks that they undertake, with a particular focus on high-risk activities that their staff are involved in. Purpose of that initiative is both from the point of view of preventing accidents and also to allow us to help defend claims. That's just a kind of flavour there of the initiatives that we're looking to take forward. And moving on to section 11 of the report, financial implications, just wanted to sum up that all the claims that we had intimated during 21-22, they have an overall estimated value of £2.2 million. And all the claims that came in were below our self-insured excess limits. That being the case, all costs will be paid from our self-insured fund. The last point I want to flag up, just bringing it back to the point about that increased excess, we will look to closely monitor the balance in the self-insurance fund going forward, especially given that we've taken on that increased level of self-insurance. So that concludes the report, Chair. We're really looking for the committee to note the report and the trends and the measures that will be taken forward to mitigate against losses. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Scott. Any questions to Scott? No. Okay, I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
I'll now move to item 6, which is Yvonne's going to speak to. It's the Fraud Statistics Annual Report 21-22. Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. So these are the fraud statistics for the year to 31st of March 2022, and these are the figures that we bring every 6 months to the committee. The start of the report just gives you a bit of background in terms of how we collate these figures, and notes that we are continuing to see within these figures the impact of the pandemic, and the impact of that is essentially that the case numbers that are coming through are still relatively low. Main part of the report sits really within the tables, and they start within section 4 of the report. So table 1 at 4.3 takes you through the fraud caseloads. That's really just showing you how many cases we had open at the start, how many were closed in the year, and how many are work in progress as at the end of the financial year. And as I've just mentioned there, 4.4 is referencing the fact that the cases reported in the year remain relatively low, but there is a pattern of these coming through that they primarily come from either benefit fraud or theft. 4.5 sets out an analysis of the closed cases. So if you see the bold line in table 1, cases closed in the year, and you drop that down to table 2, you can see an analysis of how that's broken down. So 15 out of 33 were founded. We had insufficient information for 3. Unfounded allegations was 11, and a new category, time delay. This relates to cases that have been closed by DWP because of the delay in investigating, particularly linked to the pandemic. These cases have been closed on a risk basis, and we're just advised of the outcome, and the council have no control over that decision, but we are assured that it has been done on a risk basis. In terms then of a breakdown at table 3, that shows you the founded allegations, and that's at the top of page 43, and that shows you that almost all of them came from an external source, with 1 from benefits. Aside from this work, we also participate in the NFI exercise, and the report coming up next in the agenda takes you through the outcomes from that. In the year, the internal audit team have also worked on some of the anti-fraud work that's been required around COVID grants that were disbursed by the council on behalf of the Scottish Government. And we've also continued to undertake self-assessment exercises against good practice and review fraud policies, which we're soon to present back to committee in terms of a refreshed approach. So in terms of this report, can I just ask that you note the contents? Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Any questions to Yvonne on that report? No? Okay, I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder? Thank you.
Yep, I'll second it.
Thank you, Colin. Item 7, which is 2020 National Fraud Initiative exercise, and again, pages 47 to 56, and that's Yvonne is going to speak to that report again. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. This exercise started back in 2020 when we uploaded data from the council systems to the NFI website. And what happens is public sector data is gathered from across Scotland. That data is matched and then is returned to us to investigate. So that's just a brief overview, perhaps for new members that are not familiar with the NFI. The background just takes you through the kind of process around the gathering of data, and Appendix 1, just for information, sets out all of the matches that are undertaken on this data. In terms of the actual detail of it, it starts in Appendix 2 to this report, and it takes you through the matches that have come back to South Lanarkshire Council. So we originally reported over 17,000 matches that had come back. What happens is we continue to provide further data, and new matches are sent back to us, and at the end of that we had total matches of 25,943. Now, as you can imagine, that becomes almost an unworkable task for us to investigate all of those matches. So as a section, we undertook some risk assessment to try and work out areas where we would get the best outcome. And from that, we developed a revised target, and that's set out in Appendix 3. So it takes you through the original targets and the revised targets, and then shows you that all of those were cleared. So 9,446, which were deemed high risk matches, were investigated. And you'll note from that there were 184 fraud and errors with a value of around 158,000, and the details of that are set out in 4.7 to the report. Just for the committee's notice as well, at 4.8, we're setting out the fact that although not an actual outcome in terms of blue badges, there's a notional outcome attached to that of 575, and that's where we have a match with DWP's deceased list. And we haven't recorded that in our blue badge database. I think important to note that that's not actual financial loss to the council, and it's just a notional outcome instead. Of interest also to the committee would be a comparison to our last NFI exercise and the outcomes from that, and that's set out in Appendix 4, and you'll see a comparison there to 2018 exercise and the 2020 that's reported today to you. The major differences are in areas where we didn't previously undertake matches, and I think there's some comfort there in terms of the comparative outcomes from one exercise to another, and I think also some comfort in terms of the relatively low outcomes. In the next audit committee, members will get an opportunity to have a look at South Lanarkshire Council's outcomes in comparison to Scotland-wide, and I think that will also provide you with some comfort around the fact that our outcomes are relatively low, but we do recognise the value of participating in this as an exercise in terms of deterrent to fraud. So for the purposes of this report, I'm asking that you note the results of the 2020 NFI exercise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Any questions to Yvonne on that report? No. Yvonne, I'd like you to take our thanks back to the department for their robust work, their excellent reports that you've submitted today to the Risk and Audit, and I know there's a lot of work goes into that, so thank you very much on behalf of the committee.
Thank you.
And I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Item 8 is the forward programme for future meetings, and I'm going to go over to Elizabeth Ann to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a standard report that comes to each meeting of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee. The background is set out at section 3.1 of the report, whereby one of the actions from Audit Scotland's report on the audit of best value in community planning 2009 was to include as a standard item a list of agenda items for future meetings of this committee, and also to provide members with an opportunity to inform future meeting items. The forward programme to the 7th of March 2023 is provided at the appendix in page 59 of the pack. The report is for noting, and if I could just refer members back to recommendations at section 2.1 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. Any points to Elizabeth's report? No? Okay, I'll move that report. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yep, I'll second it.
Thank you. Item 9 is urgent business, and I have none. And I'd like to thank you all for attending the meeting today. Thank you.